Well, let's talk about where conflicts come from. Let me tell you one that's happened here not too far back with my wife and me. One of us, like most marriages, one of us is a spender and one of us is a saver. And I'll let you figure out who's who in just a minute. The day came we needed to replace a car. And so I spent a few days researching what kind of car I wanted. And given the fact that my boys are growing up and I'm at the middle of my career, it was time to move up. And so I came up with a list of vehicles, and over the weekend my wife and I decided how much money we wanted to spend on this vehicle. So we agreed. She's an accountant by trade, and I trust her judgment on financial things, so she said, I think this is the max we should spend. So we went over to a neighboring town to look at the first vehicle on my list and started to negotiate. And by the time we got to his best price, we got our best price, we were $1,700 apart. And so I said to the guy, well, do you care if I take a few minutes and talk to my wife about it? So he went inside. I'm sitting behind the wheel. Tamara's sitting beside me. And I said, so what do you think? And she said, $1,700. And I said, it's a beautiful car. She's like, John, the budget. I said, this car is going to last us for 10 years, easy, right? And so we start into this argument. So this goes on for a few minutes, and I finally figure out this isn't going to happen. Okay, so I go inside, I've got to humble myself, say to the guy, I'm so sorry, it's too much car. I get back in my vehicle and I'm driving us back to town. And I am not happy with my wife, right? Now when I get angry, I just don't talk. So we're driving back in silence, and Tamara knows the drill. We've been married almost 20 years now, so can see right through that. And tries to crack a joke. It's not very funny, so I don't laugh. And we keep going down the road, and finally we end up getting a vehicle that's, basically it was a repeat of the car that I've always had. Now, when we're looking at that kind of conflict right there, the question we got to ask ourselves is the problem in that situation, is the problem the car? And so the problem is not the car. Okay, now the trick question here is the problem my wife? Now, I'm going to argue for the fact that the problem is not my wife. There's something else going on here that's much deeper than just the externals. Okay, so let's say that the problem that we're bringing to the table is us, me individually, you individually, you're bringing it to the table. Now, the way the Bible is going to talk about your heart is that your heart's like a factory, and what it's always generating are desires, motives, and ambitions. So desires you would express by saying, I want. Motives you would express by saying, here's the reason why. And ambitions are things you want to achieve or accomplish or do. Now that's fine as far as that goes, because that's the way God designed your heart to function. But there's a problem, and that is in your heart there's a parasite. Okay, and the parasite functions in a way that it's got to attach itself to those desires, ambitions, and motives. And when it does, it's going to spin them out into one of two ditches. I'm going to call these ditches the over ditch and the under ditch. So you can start wanting something, but if you start wanting it too much, if you start over-attaching to it, now you've got an over-desire. You don't just want the car, you've convinced yourself you need the car. Now below that is not just needing the car, but why did you need the car? Well, in my kingdom, what you drive says something about how successful you are. And I don't feel very successful driving my little car down the road. It just doesn't communicate success, right? Now, Tamara doesn't know all that, but that's what's going on inside of my heart. So this is what I'm going to argue for, that what's going on really is your heart tends to get out of control. You can start to want something too much, and you're going to have a conflict. You can start to want something too little, a good thing you should want, but now you're going passive. Now, for every desire, ambition, and motive that you have, most of the time you need somebody else's cooperation to get it. Now, you tell me on a typical day, how often between two people are their desires, ambitions, and motives going to line up? It's just not going to happen very often, and when it doesn't, you're going to have a conflict. Now, let me show you real quick what happens when you've got a conflict. The Bible uses the word debt. It's a financial term. And so when you actually offend or hurt or wrong somebody in a relationship, let's just say that this stack of cards here are debit cards. What you're going to do is you're going to take your spouse's debit card and you're going to swipe it, and now here's the debt on the table. Now, if you don't know how to get that debt off the table that day, you're in trouble, because that debt now, it's going to start to accrue. And you've got a precedent. So now, most people, I think, want to go to bed at night and hope that while they're sleeping, this debt somehow or another just like goes away. Well, it can't do that. I mean, the emotional sting may dissipate, but the debt itself, it's on the table. So now you might get up the next day, try to act like you're all okay, but another day or two later, because you're going to sin, something else is going to go down, and now you've got another one. Well, we got a bad pattern here. If we're talking about a marriage, what's going to happen now is you're going to start to accumulate debt, because here we go. Okay? And now the question I've got for you is, well, like, how long can you do that? Right? Now, can you do that forever? I mean, you just cannot do that forever. Eventually, you're going to tap out. And when that happens, I'm going to say that what has occurred is you've gone bankrupt. You've accumulated so much relational debt against each other that you're now broke. See, the bigger the pile gets, the more emotionally unstable the relationship is, and you're going to start to drift. So what we're going to have to learn to do is, how do you take one of these cards and then begin to take it off the pile? Okay? What you can't do, it's just not possible, is take the whole pile in one fell swoop, just say, oh, well, it's water under the bridge, let's just, bygones are bygones, let's get over it and move on. I just want to move forward starting today. I don't think you can do that. This debt, it's a moral issue and it's in your heart. So you can leave your marriage if you want to, you can leave the town you live in and you want to, you can quit the job you have, but the debt's going with you. So the problem is not out there. The problem is not primarily your spouse, it's in your heart. So what we want to learn to do is, can you take one of these cards here and then biblically take it off the pile? Now, let me just say, as a general rule, when we get going on this, what we want to learn to do is start with the most recent debt. Some folks are going to come to me for counseling. They've got 20, 30 years worth of debt. And you know what? It's just not going to work to try to tease that all the way back. So what you're going to have to do is start with the one that you just did this morning, or the one that you did yesterday, where your memory is much more clear on that, and then you start working your way back through it. Okay? So that's what we're going to try to do here through the rest of these sessions, is talk about what's going to have to happen to get one of these cards off the pile so you don't keep yourself in debt. So just like we would say financially, you want to learn to live debt-free. The same thing is true here with respect to your heart in your relationships. You want your relationships to be functioning debt-free. So we would say Christ died to set you free. Now you've got to participate in that by working all of that out. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next session, is what has God done to equip us to be able to do that.